there are some critical components in regards to the brooder that you need to know if you're going to be successful with these birds. First thing on my list here is what ration are you going to feed your birds? So there's a ton of different options out there. You got to see what's available to you locally. You want to follow the manufacturer's recommended guidelines for when to do starter. Sometimes they have a starter, grower, and finisher. What we run right now is a starter, and then it transitions to a finisher. I'll talk more in detail about that later, but you want to pick something that matches your goals for the birds. If you want to do organic feed, do organic feed. If you want to do non-GMO, look for that. If you just want to do commodity and you want the cheapest bird you can also go that route. But you got to pick a system that has a starter, grower, finisher model and stick to it so that the birds have the nutrition that they need as they go through the different stages of their life. They're going to progress very quickly through those stages, so they need the proper nutrition at each stage in order to get you the results that you want. The next thing on the list is arguably the most important in regards to the first couple of days of their life. So that's the temperature at which you put these birds. So the rule of thumb is for the first 48 hours, we want to be around 95 degrees. If the temperature or the humidity is very high, we're going to lower that temperature just a little bit. But the main thing you want to watch there is you want to make sure you've got areas in your brooder that are at least 95 degrees that the birds can come into. And then you're going to watch the behavior of those chicks. And we'll talk more about that when we see the chicks. But if they're all cuddled up underneath the lights, then that's probably too cold in the area that they're in. If they are staying away from the lights completely, you've probably got it a little bit too hot. So you just kind of use the chicks to manage that temperature yourself. So Stromberg's gave us this really cool lamp. These are really great. They sell great bulbs that go with these and put out a lot of heat. This lamp is also able to be switched on and off independently, which some lamps aren't. And it also has the grate there to protect it if it was to fall. So you can pinch it or you can hang it. Pretty cool features on the Stromberg's lamp. So I highly recommend those, and they're pretty affordable too. Number 3 on the list would be drafts. So drafts are really dangerous for the birds. You do not want to put them in a space that you can't have a lot of control over. So you want to pick a spot that doesn't have a bunch of wind blowing through it from the outside, cool air blowing across them, really, really bad. So you need fresh air coming into the space that they're in, but you don't want that air blowing on the birds. They just really don't handle that well at all. That leads us to part 4 when we're talking about airflow. We want to have some fresh air coming into the building, but we again don't want it directed at the birds. And we want to sort of monitor the temperature that's in the space to make sure that we're not getting too hot in the overall space. And we're also not getting a buildup of like CO2 if you're running a heater or something like that. You know, with the small amount of birds, this isn't as big of an issue as it would be in a commercial setting or where you have a whole bunch of chicks where we're really watching ammonia levels and CO2 levels and things like that. In a smaller brooder, it's not that big of a deal, but you do want to have some measured control over some fresh air that's coming in and then also exhausting some of the old air and sort of getting a chance to tumble in the space, if you will. So we just don't want it blowing directly on the birds. For the first 48 hours, we want to use the 1-gallon cans in there. That way everybody's getting a chance to get a drink, but we also want to introduce them to the nipple system that we're going to use throughout the rest of their life. So these drink sticks are from Stromberg's. They sent me this. It comes all assembled, so you don't have to put it together. It's ready to go. You can unscrew them. You can screw more together. So if you need a longer length, you can do that. But it's real important when you put these in here that you make sure you put them in a way where you can adjust the heights, because the birds are going to grow really fast, and we need to be able to lift that higher and higher as they go. So we don't want the birds standing on their toes to drink. We just want them to be able to kind of walk up to the nipple, look straight up, and get a drink. So we want to keep that height about in the sweet spot for them as they age, and then we'll do the same thing when we go to the chicken tractor outside. Pick up with the bedding. I typically go to get fine pine shavings at my local box store, and that works really well for me. I want to start out with a layer about 1 inch, maybe 2 inches, you know, not too deep, and then I'm going to add a little bit of shavings every day to kind of hit the spots where they're putting the most manure. And so little by little, over 2 to 3 weeks, the bedding's going to get just slightly deeper, but they're always kind of on fresh shavings each day, and that works really well for me. Another really important part in regards to bedding, if you have a water spill out or they make a big mess somehow, you have some kind of a leak, it's important to clean out that wet bedding and go ahead and remove it and put fresh back in its place. Another thing that I do, especially with small batches that I've been really happy with, is I will keep these little plant trays underneath the waterers, or especially under the nipples, because they always tend to leak just a little bit. The birds will play in them and drip a lot of water, and if you get a big puddle underneath them, that's where disease is typically going to spread. So if I keep a little plant tray there, I can pull it out, I can rinse it off, I can put it back fresh, and every day it stays nice and clean for my birds. All right, part number 7 would be the space that you give the birds. So I tend to kind of be somewhere between 3/4 of a square foot to 1 square foot per bird. So on this particular brooder, I'm about 1 square foot per bird, and that's going to easily let me go to about 3 weeks if I need to. I hope to have them on pasture closer to 2, but I always want to give myself a little bit of extra space just in case the weather's really bad and we get stuck in here a little longer than I would like to be in here. Another component to the space is we try to have rounded corners if we can. We don't really want places where the birds will kind of pile up and smother each other out. Number 8 brings us back around to the temperature. We want the ability to reduce that temperature little by little as they age in the brooder. We want them nice and hardened off before they go to the pasture. So about 1 to 2 degrees per day, we want to be able to reduce the heat that the birds are under. So we can do that by reducing the amount of lamps or raising the height of the lamps, adjusting the throw of the lamps. There's lots of different ways that we can sort of play the thermostat. I typically use a laser to see what the temperature is down at the bird's level. Number 9 is noise. So we really want the birds to have a nice, peaceful experience. With numbers this small, when we're talking 25, 30 birds, we don't have to worry about crowding as much, but loud noises can really freak them out. They can run against a wall and kind of crush the birds in front of them, especially if you have hundreds of them. But we really want the birds to have a nice, peaceful experience. We don't want barking dogs. We don't want loud noises. We don't want a lot of machinery near our brooder if we can help it. We want it to be a nice, peaceful, relaxing experience for the birds. We know that stress is a secret silent killer, right? There's probably no better way I know to really recognize stress and the effects that it has on a living being than to see it in a 7-pound bird, because it's just really obvious when they're thriving and doing well, or when they're stressed out and not doing well. The difference is astronomical, and it's just such a small frame that it's easy to really see it. Keep the birds calm, and you stay calm yourself. Component number 10 would be access to food and water. So typically, if I see anybody kind of messing up in regards to getting their birds to grow, it is access to feed and water. So these birds are going to want to eat kind of all at the same time. They don't really share feeders very well, so we want to have a lot of space where the big ones can't box out the little ones and kind of hoard their spot at the feeder. So I want to make sure they have plenty of access to water. These nipples do about 8 to 10 birds per nipple, so we got plenty of water there. We've also got the extra 1 gallon in there, and we may even leave it just a little bit longer. These feeders come from Stromberg's. They gave these to me. I'm really happy with these. I've got them set up 2 different ways. One is with the lid. If you had older birds that were going to try to roost on these, you know, that lid is great for not allowing birds to kind of perch on there at nighttime. With the Cornish cross, we don't really need that. So I'm going to be taking the lids off like I have the other one set up, but I'm really pleased with these feeders. They're adjustable up and down. So depending on what kind of feed you're feeding, whether that's crumble or textured like we use, it's going to allow the feed to come through just like it needs to. Got 2 of them. It's way overkill, or what it seems like way overkill, but I want lots of places for those birds to get in. So I also am going to leave the feed all the time. I'm not one to take the feed out and do this kind of ration approach. I want to let the birds have full access all the time. I want them to free feed, because I want the birds done and dusted at 7 weeks if I can. I know some of them are probably going to spill over into that 8, maybe even 9-week range. They're going to burn more calories on the pasture, so that's going to slow them down from a full-on commercial operation, but I want to be as close to 7 weeks done and dusted if I can. So that's our 10 components to the brooder. I always want my brooder set up nice in advance of any birds coming. I want to be checking temperatures. I want to see how it's kind of operating in the space that I have it set up in, so that when I get birds, I'm ready to use it. I'm ready to know that they're going to be safe and they're going to be happy, and I'm going to know what I'm doing to make adjustments as needed to get the results that I want. So I hope this video finds you well. I hope things are going well for you. God bless. Take care. We'll see you next week.